Here, Dave.
Okay.
All right, we're live. Sending a tweet out.
Woohoo.
I will retweet.
Okay. Alrighty, so we are live. Welcome to Code and Hustle's first Google Hangout here with an esteemed photographer from Halifax, Nova Scotia. We have Jeff and Jennifer from Cooked Photography. We're really excited to kind of chat with these guys about some workflow and their business, their brand, their photography. We want to keep the tone of this chat about workflow, but we're going to explore Jeff and Jennifer's work as well. So we want to thank you guys. In this chat, we have myself, David from Code and Hustle. We have Sean McGrath.
Hey.
We have Jeff and Jennifer, and we also have another person, I believe.
Bethany. Intern.
Bethany.
The
Yeah,
intern.
Bethany.
The intern is back there somewhere.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. How are you guys doing today?
This is great. Oh, great.
Awesome.
We're just settling into our morning routine and on like the second cup of coffee, and we're gearing to go.
Yeah.
So this is a great way to start the day. Thanks for inviting us to hang out.
Absolutely. So
That's
I'm on
pretty cool. I've never done this.
No.
It works pretty well. I'm on my 5th or 6th cup, so if I seem a little jittery, then probably.
That happens.
All
All
right,
right, this
guys.
is great.
So let's get talking. If you guys can tell us a little bit about yourself, your photography, and what you guys have been up to lately. So basically, just let us know who you guys are.
Sure. Well, I'm Jeff Cook, and that's Jen Noss.
I'm Jen Noss.
And we are Cooked Photography, formerly Jeff Cook Photography, but we recently dropped the Jeff because I'll get into that a little bit. But we are wedding and portrait photographers in Halifax, Nova Scotia, mostly weddings, based in Nova Scotia, but we travel all over for weddings. We've been doing it now we've been together for a little over 5 years, Jen, right?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
I've been doing it full-time professionally for 7, and yeah, it's been great. I originally was, I guess, 7 years ago, was working at Bank of America down in North Carolina, and I quit my job to move back to Nova Scotia to do wedding photography, and it's kind of a long process, but through support from friends and family and advertising some free weddings on what was it, Craigslist back then, and building a portfolio, ended up back in Nova Scotia with like 20 weddings my first year, and that quickly grew to like 30 something, and ever since then we're averaging about 40 weddings a year here, and it's great. And Jen came to me year one, and really she kind of helped me with not only creative aspect and assisting with lighting and stuff, but editing and post work and our workflow. A lot of what I do now in order to maintain somewhat of a work-life balance is I can attribute to Jen helping us out, because she's been a big support for us. Jen, you can kind of ramble on about your story if you want. Push you on the spot.
I'm a pharmacist, and I was kind of heading down that path, and then I realized there's no way on earth I needed something to be out there, meet people, do something creative. So I went to school for photography, and like Jeff said, I did my work term with him, and yeah, we kind of hit it off.
Yeah,
So,
it's
Awesome.
Amazing. Cool. So I just wanted to just kind of mention here that Sean and I are from the East Coast of Canada. I'm from Nova Scotia. Sean's from New Brunswick, and I just want to do a little bit of a fist pump to you guys.
Yep.
Representing Nova Scotia in such an amazing light. The East Coast has an incredible wealth of talent, and you guys and what you do is incredible. So let's keep rolling along here.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. This is great. Yeah, what you guys have done on these, is great as well with Code and Hustle. So.
wow.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been pretty fun. We've met a lot of cool people, all over the world. But we're definitely pretty proud of being from the East Coast and seeing people on the East Coast do big things. So,
Yeah.
and that's why, obviously we thought of you guys, because you guys are killing it right now. And
We're trying.
yeah, and that sort of leads, I guess, into the next question that we have for you. And it's like you guys always seem to be kind of all over the place lately, traveling, lots of destination weddings. you guys want to talk a little bit about those, like some places you've been, like any tips or tricks that you guys do when you're preparing for those trips, and maybe anything you do differently to approach those weddings that you might do differently from like a local wedding in Halifax.
Yeah, I think traveling is always funny because we shoot a lot more, I find, because we're with clients for a longer period of time as opposed to like a typical wedding day. So with all the files that we end up accumulating on our cards, it's really important to have backups. Nowadays with iCloud and portable hard drives, like it's just so important for us to make sure that when we're traveling and we're mobile, like those files are protected somewhere. So there are times when we've been shooting weddings abroad and like I've had a laptop in the corner downloading cards and copying them and backing them up because I'm so paranoid. I'm going through airport security and cards get faulted out or something.
Yeah, we did that during a reception once.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Seriously. Well, that was kind of a funny story because we had camera gear break.
Funny after the fact.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, it kind of sucked. I was shooting a wedding, or we were shooting a wedding in Mexico, and the first day that we got down there, I jumped in the water to take a picture because the sunset was amazing, and the bride and groom were on this pier, and it was just, everything was perfect. I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta go take this picture. So I get in the water, and I'm hovering like right over the waves as they're breaking over the camera, and of course one wave came and splashed my hands, and later that night, the LCD shorted out on the camera, and for whatever reason, at that time, we only traveled with 2 cameras, one for Jen, one for me. We didn't bring our backups because I don't really know why. We had the X100s, but that's not really a...
We learned since then.
What's that?
I said we learned big time since then.
Yeah, seriously, right? Anyways, so we shot blind, and I was a little bit paranoid. The file's turning out, I don't know, and so we got into this whole backup thing, and so that's what Jen was alluding to, that during the whole reception we were downloading cards, looking to make sure that the files we were shooting were actually turning out. Since then, I've learned to trust my instincts, and that even if the LCD fries, like just keep shooting, because it's kind of muscle memory, and we know what kind of settings that we want for different situations. But at that time, it was pretty stressful. So traveling, definitely make sure you have backups for everything: flashes and cameras and hard drives and backup. Locally, I have a basement full of gear. I mean, I was pretty much a self-proclaimed gear addict for the longest period of time, and I would roll up to weddings with a truckload of just stuff falling out of it, and like you couldn't even fit anything in there.
We would bring basically all of our gear to every wedding, just in
crazy.
Case, like whatever we needed, we had it. But it was overkill.
Yeah. Total overkill. Like, I mean, seriously, 7-foot parabolics and 5-foot parabolics and pro photo lighting and different modifiers and beauty dishes, and like half the stuff would stay in the car, and it was more just a pain in the ass just lugging it around. We've since simplified. Traveling has taught us how to simplify because we can't lug all that gear with us. So we've kind of gone back to the bare basics of what we need to shoot a wedding, and it works great. Now, that's not to say that I'm not going to pull out a pro photo light with a beauty dish on a bright sunny day to take a picture with the sun in the background, but we've learned to work around that in certain conditions, and so the need to use all that gear has been diminished. But we don't have access to that when we travel, so we've simplified, and I think that's actually a good thing for a lot of photographers, is because you're more mobile and portable on a wedding day if you're not lugging gear. I mean, Jen now is a photographer. Sorry, Jen?
So it's almost easier when you have less gear. Just you have to work with what you got.
You just can stay connected with the clients. The conversations that we used to have, and not that we don't like doing this, but we would set up the shot, and then Jen and I would be connected to try to get the lighting right and move things and adjust things. And the bride and groom would be standing there looking at us like, do, and we're meanwhile engaged with each other. And I really found that was a big disconnect, because I want to be connected with my clients and not Jen. No offense, Jen, but so by simplifying now, I can just, everything's quick, and it's like, again, going back to the muscle memory. Now we just turn things on and it's ready to go, and we can just stay connected with our clients and engage with them as opposed to each other, and it's been great. So by traveling a lot, it's allowed us to learn all this.
Yeah, so in a way then, like your destination weddings and that need to sort of downsize could almost help you in a way and show you that you only need so much stuff to properly cover an event.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool. I did the same thing. I bought a Lowepro X500 camera bag. It's big, beautiful, full luggage size bag, and you have all the slots, and you feel the need to kind of fill all the slots with everything you have.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I have this ginormous bag that weighs 175 pounds, and I'm going to take this to my wedding, and then I'm shooting, and I'm thinking, oh my God, why did I do this? And just because you can doesn't mean you should. So, yeah. Now I use a little smaller bag now. So
Yeah, we have his and her matching backpacks.
Very nice. Cool. All right. So that's really neat. The destination wedding photos you guys have been posting lately, some of the weddings in the USA have been just mind-blowingly good. I just want to make a mention of that.
Oh, thanks.
Excellent stuff. So that being said, recently, with those weddings and stuff, you guys have been tearing it up on the awards front lately. Is there any advice that you guys could give on how you select and organize the images that you're going to take and you're going to eventually submit to these kind of competitions and awards and things like that?
Yeah. So number one thing that I think above and beyond all other photos is that the moment trumps all. So if you have a photo that you think is a killer moment, and by killer I mean killer moment, like you feel something when you look at it, or you're like, oh my gosh, how did you get that? I mean, that to me is usually like definitely want to put that out there for to be recognized, hopefully by these different organizations. But really, it's the photos that make you stop and look, make you feel something, just make you think, make you go back and look at it again. A lot of us now, there's just so many people submitting photos that are like, bride and groom portraits. So I just assume that a lot of the photos that people put in are like, here's an awesome bride-groom photo and then this epic landscape. And those are great, but knowing that there's probably a huge number of those photos being submitted, let's just try to think outside of those photos, unless it's like an amazing moment or something like just completely different, which will be, which would make you think of like, oh, that's an interesting photo, like, and not just your typical like nose-to-nose silhouette in a sunset with a bride and groom. So we just think a lot about the aspects of a wedding day, like getting ready, the portraits, the ceremony, and we look for particular moments within those little chunks of time on a wedding day and pull out like our 5 stars, or some of our favorite photos, and then Jen and I look through and we narrow it down and we send things in. And it's great. Like, I just like being part of the organizations like ISPWP and Fearless Photographers and Junebug. They're all great organizations. It's great recognition when you win. It's visibility. It's for us. It's just being part of the community, seeing how our work in Eastern Canada and Maritimes holds up against the rest of the world. And it's great because I really wanted to show that there's a lot of great photographers here and great photography that's being done here, and on a world scale, it's nice to be visible. And
yeah, I think you mentioned seeing your work on a global scale. I mean, the internet has leveled the playing field. You could be from a small town and somewhere in any country, but being globally recognized for your work is just incredible.
Totally. Jen, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you pretty much covered that one.
Okay.
Yeah, if this one's oh, sorry, Jen.
To kind of represent the East Coast. It's okay. It's to represent the East Coast because we kind of get friends. So.
Awesome. So, Jeff, this one's, I think, more specific to you, but you recently attended the foundation workshop.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that? How was that?
Amazing. So for me, I was never formally trained in any kind of photojournalism. It's all self-taught. In fact, everything that I've done in photography has been self-taught. Analyzing, reading, researching, being inspired by different other different places and people. So when I've been thinking about doing foundation for a while, and I talked to a few other photographers that had went, and then it was actually a conversation with Erica and Lanny Mann, and Erica Mann from Two Man, she had went and was Lanny had went, and he was raving about it, and so listening to him talk and his experience, it kind of was like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's a big investment, but I really feel like it's something I want to do for myself because I've never had any formal education, if you will, in photography. Going to it was really hard work. I wasn't really I didn't expect it to be as exhausting as it was, but they basically took everything that I was doing and stripped it down and showed me where I was succeeding and failing and gave me the tools to move forward. It didn't change me completely right away. It's been kind of an ongoing process for me as I shoot. Every time I pick up the camera now, I can hear like Ben Chrisman chirping in my ear or JBS chirping in my ear on the things that they were saying while I'm shooting. And it's great because it's just forcing me to see things differently, and my approach is a little different. I'm not as schizophrenic on a wedding day running all over the place. I'm a little bit more controlled. And so for me, it was great. I was asked by somebody, do you think it's like for everybody? And I guess the answer is really no. It depends on the kind of photographer that you are and what you're looking for. For me, advertising us as storytelling, documentary style photographers, that aspect of photography was really important to harness those skills, and it allowed for that. And on top of all of that, it's such an amazing group of people that you experience this week with, and they're all friends. It's literally like we left feeling like a family, and I stay in touch with my team that I was on. I'm always chatting with them, and it's just like a support system that you have now to just, if I have an idea or whatever, we can just kind of bounce it off them, and it's great. It's just been fantastic. So I couldn't be more of an advocate for it, and it's definitely worth the investment. In fact, it was so beneficial that I'm sending Jen this year. She's going in January to experience it as well. So I'm pretty pumped about that. Yeah, I know you're pumped.
I'm
Yeah, it's when I saw you win, I was pretty jealous. I've been eyeing it for a long time.
Yeah, the one thing that I was always hesitant on was the cost. And is it like I felt like I had the foundation. Like I didn't need to go to some school or like to this organization to learn the foundation, because I felt I was a little more advanced than that. And so that was really my hang up. But I can tell you, it doesn't matter what skill level you are as a photographer, it's still going to put you with the right mentor and teacher, and it's one-on-one. Even though you're in a team, you have one-on-one support and mentor and leaders that are helping you, and they're watching you shoot, and they're giving you ideas and telling you what to do. And I mean, it was kind of stressful at times, but I mean, I broke a camera. I literally dropped a camera in the river while I was shooting this family, Ben and Crispin hovering over the hill, and I lose my 35 and my 750 into the river because I went back into like Jeff Cook mode, and I was running all over the place. It's kind of like you let the ego slip in a little bit, and they are like, throw your ego out the door, and this is all about like getting better as a photographer. And so it was great. It was awesome.
Great. And it's funny because you say you never had any formal education, but would you consider the foundation workshop to be like a formal education, or is it something totally different?
So it's not so much classroom assignment based. So it's not educational in a sense that way. It's more hands-on. They put you out and you into an environment with an assignment. You have to shoot, and they come and they watch you shoot, and they critique you, and they give you ideas, and yell at you if you're doing something stupid, and then you spend time afterwards literally going through every single shot. You're not allowed to delete in camera. It's all your raw files, and they look at everything, and they want to see your thought process as you're shooting, and they walk and they're like, that's crap, and they can see you work in a moment. And then when you're hanging out in these rooms with your team and these mentors who I admire and respect, it's just an open conversation. It's very candid, and you can ask them anything, and they'll tell you anything. And it's not just about the work you're doing; it's about your business and you as a photographer and a person, and goals and directions, and it's just great. So it's definitely not like a school education, but it's definitely from a photographer standpoint, I think an amazing place to go to learn, to either brush up or learn or get better at like your photojournalistic skills, and then on top of which you're going to become part of this amazing community, which I love. So
cool.
That was my question.
Um, okay, Jeff, how would you say the future's looking? Is there anything exciting that you and Jen can share that's on the horizon with you guys? Anything at
Um,
all?
yeah, there's a bunch. We have so outside of some awesome weddings that we've got this year, we're kind of all over the place. We're across Canada and down in the south, and so we've got a bunch on the go. Jen's got her officially, I think we can say, her first official wedding on her own, which happens to be in Mexico, which just kind of sucks, right? Like,
It's terrible.
um,
So hurt.
so she's doing that in
That's
November.
awful.
Yeah, we're actually. But no, the big shift that we've been working towards. I mean, I dropped Jeff from Jeff Cook Photography, and part of the reason was Jen because she's grown from assistant to now she's a professional. Like when we shoot on wedding days, we both have cameras in our hands, and she's just I assist her just as much as she assists me, and we're a fantastic team. I love our team as a wedding photography team, but ultimately I'm giving her opportunities to shoot a lot more, and so I didn't want people contacting us thinking that they were going to hire me all the time, and I really wanted to put a name on her, and I didn't want to lose her because she's been with me for 6 years or 5 years. So that was part of the reason why we made the switch to separate myself from the business per se. So it's kind of exciting. I haven't really formally announced anything. I just kind of made the switch, and to be honest with you, I wasn't really planning on doing a kind of formal announcement about it. I just said, I'm just going to do it, and I'm not the kind of guy that says, "Hey, look at me, we're now Cooked."
Sounds like this is the formal
Yeah, I guess this is the
announcement.
formal announcement. We are now Cooked Photography.
First time. You heard it
First
here.
time here live on. No, it's great. It's awesome. So that's pretty exciting, and we're working on some potential. I've been really wanting to get overseas, and it's been eluding me to this point. But there's some talks of places like Australia and possibly other places that are cool and exciting. So fingers crossed that all works out for us. But ultimately, like the direction that we're going. Is I'm really happy. Like I feel like it's we're loosely following our business plan or my business plan, and it's been great. Like I have I'm pretty happy and proud of the work that Jen's doing, and I love our clients. It's really funny. I left the Maritimes to go work, and then I came back to the Maritimes because it's an awesome place to be. Absolutely love living in Halifax. I love East Coast of Canada. It's fantastic. But now I'm traveling a lot more to leave the Maritimes. And somebody had asked me the other day, they're like, "Why are you leaving the Maritimes? You talk about how much you love the East Coast, and now you want to travel more." And I do. Everybody loves to travel, especially if I get to take pictures. But ultimately, it's the people that we're shooting that I want to work for. It's not necessarily the location. So if there's someone that we connect with that lives anywhere and they want to work with us and are excited about working with us, then that's great. And so that's really the main reason why I want to travel is just to kind of expand. And the more visible, I guess, we are on a global scale, the more attention we get to go to these destinations. And but ultimately, we're just like we're getting out there. So it's awesome. I'm pretty excited about it. Jen, is there anything? I'm doing the ramble thing, so I'm kind of reeling it back in.
Cool. No, you're doing great. That's really funny how you mentioned that about coming back to the East Coast and then leaving again. But yeah, like, totally. I think working with the right clients and kind of people that you gel with perfectly is more important than your physical location. So,
Seriously.
Absolutely. It makes all the difference for everyone, for us and for them, and awesome to build those connections.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about traveling that I love the most, and I mentioned it earlier, you shoot a wedding locally, typically, 8, 10, 12, 20 hours that you're shooting, and you're spending a day with this couple, and you meet with them before, you meet with them after, but for the most part, you're working with them. You might do an engaged shoot, but working with them for that one day. When you travel, for us, we hang out with them during the rehearsal, and we go to like rehearsal parties, and we do like off-site engagement style shoots with them before the wedding, and then we do the wedding day, and we do day after sessions with them where we get all dressed up again, and we go out and take photos. And so it's more of we're documenting more than just the wedding day. There's these little interactions that are happening the day before when they're just like during the rehearsal dinner and like that aren't the script of a wedding day. And so those little moments I find that clients really love, and it allows us to connect more and capture more of the story, which ultimately is what I love to do the most. So
There's more opportunities to connect.
Exactly,
In that
exactly.
environment, yeah.
Yeah, I always find when you leave a wedding that you've traveled for, and you know, you feel a little bit more connected with the couple, and there's more of a relationship there.
Yeah.
Just
You
because
just
it's
spend
the
more
amount
time.
of time that you spend with, you know, not just the bride and groom, but like the bridal party and like the families, especially if you're doing like a destination wedding down south.
Totally.
Yeah,
Regarding,
I find we come out with.
sorry.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say
No.
I find we come out with like friends, like lifelong friends out of it,
Mhm.
especially when we're wedding. You know, we hang out with them back in Halifax, or you know, meet up with them if they're from away, and we go, you know, travel out to Calgary or whatever, and we hang out with them and stay friends.
Cool. So Jeff, regarding like some more future stuff, you guys are going to do some speaking at Canada Photo Convention.
Yeah, totally. Excited about it.
Do you want to just kind of mention a little bit about that before we move on to some workflow stuff?
Yeah, it's so okay. Presentation has been an ongoing. Basically, I have a pile of notes and like some pictures and slideshows and connect the dots. And in a nutshell, I am going to walk through my story and explain how there is no work-life balance, but how we've tried to maintain that balance for me as a dad and a husband, and how I've started, grew, the steps and missteps I've taken along the way as a photographer to become like a successful photographer. Really, I joke and say it's like, you know, I'm gonna talk a little bit about like the head banging to the fist pumping. So things that really were frustrating along the way, and things that we've done differently to you know, get a little more fist pumping happening. But it's so yeah, some was along on it. That's kind of the nutshell of it, I guess.
Cool. You don't want to reveal too much before the
No,
actual.
no, it's no real reveal. I mean, I've touched a little bit about what I'll probably talk about, but there's definitely going to be a connection from. I want to represent East Coast really well, Maritimes. Like we're the first photographers. You know, it's really funny. I joke and say how, you know, when a band does a Canadian tour and they stop in Toronto, it was kind of like that with or Montreal maybe. It's like, well, the Maritimes are here, and so when I talked to Jasser about CPC, I'm like, you know what? Hey, the East Coast of Canada is part of Canada, so like we need to get some representation there in CPC, and I really want to speak, and so I'm excited to represent this amazing community of photographers that we have here in Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, Newfoundland. It's awesome. So I'm proud to be a part of it and represent. So hopefully I do a good job for us.
And for anybody that's watching, you can find out more at CanadaPhotoConvention.com, and the dates that Jeff and Jen will be there are October 21st to 22nd, and it's in Toronto. So with that said, you want to chat a little bit, we'll get into some workflow specific questions,
yeah.
and sort of figure out what it is you guys do, you know, before the photos get taken, after the photos get taken, and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So why don't you guys give us a quick sort of overview of, you know, your entire sort of workflow, maybe from starting from the, you know, either after you shoot a wedding or everything that happens leading up to a wedding.
Sure. So I might answer a bunch of stuff here, but I'll just take you through, like, we come home from a wedding. I don't care what time it is. I will sit in front of this computer and download all my cards immediately. I mean, there's been times when I've been sitting here and the sun has been coming up and the birds are chirping, and I look at my and I'm like, I have a wedding to go to in another 3 hours, but I cannot rest until I download cards. Even though I have other cards that I can shoot with and leave my cards here, I'm just super paranoid about files, and I want to take as much care as I can to make sure that everything is backed up and I'm good. So that's the number one priority that when I get after shooting a wedding that happens first. And I make copies of our raw folder so that Jen can work off of it. Right now we're working on, I'm trying to figure out like a cloud solution, if there's a way that we can work so that Jen can work more remote. But so we come home, we back up. So then day one, I sit down, and sometimes I won't even look at the wedding. I just give it to Jen, and she starts working on it. But when we start shooting constantly, she'll be working on one wedding, and then I'll work on another one. I go through and I flag a bunch of photos just mainly for slideshows, albums, blog posts. It's kind of like my 200 or so selects that I'll work on, play with, and those are my like 5 stars. And then I turn it over to Jen, and she processes the rest. We have a schedule, which is probably the most life-saving thing that you can do when you have a bunch of weddings over the summer is to come up with an editing schedule so that you can deliver files on time and keep your own sanity. So Jen works through the the collection. She selects, she'll edit, and then when she's done with it, I get it back and I go through everything, make some like tweaks and fine tuning. Sometimes I find a couple other photos that I think are great for like their slideshow and move things around. Do our album designs, which are actually really simple now, and then put everything up into an online gallery for clients to access, and then send them a note saying, hey, like your slideshow is ready, your gallery is ready, your images are ready for pickup, and it's great. I promise people in the peak of wedding season, like 6 to 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks, but we try to was it like over promise under
promise
over deliver. Why do I always get that wrong?
Every time.
All the time.
Yeah, as long as you don't get it wrong if you overpromise and then underdeliver.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So anyway, so that's kind of a nutshell of how the process works. Things that take up a little time used to be album design, but we've simplified that. We don't do these crazy like collages of images anymore. Our album companies that we use are great. We have different styles of albums that we give clients, so we give them choices, but there's one that we kind of push a little harder, mainly because it's a little simpler for us to design and get out to them a little quicker. Our blog posts, Code and Hustle, storyboard, like that's
seriously.
Yeah, huge. And to be honest with you, sometimes I will use storyboard not even for a blog post, just to kind of see a layout for our albums or for just as I'm putting a slideshow together, I just kind of want to see it together and how they flow. So it really helps with storyboarding. We are storytellers. That's what we advertise and market. So it couldn't be better because it helps us think through the story that we want to tell.
That's been the most beneficial thing over the last couple of years.
A storyboard. Yeah, for blog posts. I don't have to. I used to have options and stuff. It's been a huge time saver. I think anybody that's using it it's kind of a no-brainer. And your little tweaks that you've made have been great. Storyboards. So yeah, there's a little storyboard plug. I'm not a writer. I pretty much suck at writing, so I sometimes I'll sit there and start paragraphs of rambles and then delete it, and I don't know. So blog posts they kind of take a back seat. When I get really inspired, I might write something or put something up, but for the most part, they take up a lot of time. So we just try to focus.
That'd be a really good app idea, Sean. We could do sort of a auto blog post text generator.
There you go.
A couple names.
Some buzzwords like it was a sunny day and the
epic.
It was an epic day and John and Sally were such amazing clients. And,
Generate.
I'm sure there's like cut and paste. So blog posting is turned into a low priority for me. Same as like a lot like our social media. I'm not an everyday kind of post person. I'd love to, but I don't really. It's a timing thing, and I read and watch and follow, but I don't. We throw things up there, but ultimately, what I love the most is we give a collection and a gallery to our clients. They share it. They post it on Facebook. And we're getting referrals from it. And it's without me having to blog their wedding. And it's not that I'm not proud of their wedding and don't want to show it. It's a timing thing, really. I'd blog everything if I could, but I kind of don't want to. So
your clients sort of become a little bit of a brand evangelist and do kind of that social media for you in a way if they're going to share the galleries and
and ultimately that's what we're like when I shoot. That's who I'm getting it for, and I'll put some of our favorite photos up on our on the portfolio or on Instagram something, and but ultimately like our full collections, the people that we want to see it and be our advocates are doing it for us. And I think it's kind of brilliant. Actually, it's worked out great. Less blog, more client referral. So yeah.
Cool. All right, Jeff. So and Jennifer, what would you guys say if you could say there's one thing that's kind of like your biggest time saver? Jeff, that could be Jen, it could be software, it could be anything. I mean, like in your post-shooting workflow, like what's a time saver for you guys?
Yeah, so Jen, yes, you have been a lifesaver. She knows that. Susie and I could not be more happy to have her floating around, whether it's just to take the kids to and give Susie and I a date night, or edit for me all these weddings. 'Cause when I started, I remember I was basically working 24/7. I'd literally be sitting in front of the computer editing weddings all night. Now I used to over Photoshop everything. I mean, I'd spend one photo, just a random moment of a wedding, and I'd spend 10, 20 minutes in Photoshop playing around. But that was part of the learning curve. I was figuring out how to edit and was figuring out what I liked. And it was before I was like, oh, I can just make an action for this. But Jen has been a lifesaver. But I think the biggest thing right now is I've just learned how to say no. And I don't like saying no. I'd love to shoot everything and everything that comes our way. And we get a lot of inquiries for like different family shoots and commercial work and portrait shoots. And ultimately, we have a schedule that we put together, and I have time allocated for us to go to lunch and to go to the gym and to go hang out and pick up the kids after school and go to the playground, and those are things that are important to me, and by saying yes to all the inquiries that come in, something would have to give, and that only thing that I have to give is family time. So ultimately I've had to learn to say no, and I've made some changes. I'm kind of with engagement shoots, they're exclusive to our wedding clients. I won't say yes to a random engagement shoot anymore. Family shoots, we try to schedule those in our clients. I always make time for our past clients. And so our calendar reflects that. I have days that are open for shoots that I purposely either for our existing clients if they want an engagement shoot, or if a past client is pregnant and she wants to do a maternity shoot, or somebody wants to do a boudoir shoot, like we have dates available for them. But for the most part, we just learned to say no to a lot more, and it was hard, but I'm okay with it now because I love the benefit that it's given us to be a little bit quicker with everything, and so yeah. Jen,
cool.
Anything?
Jen, how about anything
we cover that one
on the post-processing side of things? Any big time savers there as you're going through files, or?
I mean, the photo mechanic, absolutely. It really speeds up the selection, and I mean, just being, what it gets easier and easier, and definitely having a set schedule. And learning that when you have a schedule and you follow it, you do get more free time to go do those family things. So kind of pushes you through wedding season.
I think that's you guys make a really good point. I know my own personal photography business for years I kind of felt like I was a slave to it, and just like yourself, like I'd be up editing weddings at 2 o'clock in the morning and all this craziness, and the next day I wasn't functional for my children, and I realized this isn't why I went into business. I went into business to kind of maybe open up more of a world for myself instead of kind of close it down. So I think your points on scheduling and saying no are incredibly important, and they echo with me big time. So it's cool to hear you guys say that.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So what about in terms of your overall workflow? So it could be like the business part of the workflow, like dealing with inquiries. Or anything after the wedding. Is there sort of any areas where you guys think you could improve on, or any sort of tools that you would like to see built or developed, or that type of thing that could help solve those issues?
Yeah. So I've turned over some responsibilities to Susie. She's I don't officially like the studio manager. She kind of keeps me organized. Jen keeps me organized as well. I've been looking at different software, exploring different software for client correspondence and scheduling. I know it's like Tav software. I think it's Tave or Tav is one of them, which is great. I've had several photographers reference it and refer it to me and say it's a lifesaver. It takes a while to get used to and adjust, but once you're up and running, everything's automated and it's super easy to track everything. So we're exploring that because ultimately right now I sit down and I get an email and I joke and say every email that comes in my inbox is at least 30 minutes of work. Doesn't matter if it's just like going and looking for something for a client or doing an invoice or sending something. It's just there's like a 30-minute process that's involved. Obviously, there's some that's less, but that's just ballpark. So if there was some way of improving that, I think it would be great because there's days when I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna design these albums and get this wedding out and do this gallery and do this slideshow and this is my plan for the day. And I sit down and I start going through emails like I do every morning. And next thing I know, it's 4 o'clock and I have to start getting ready to go get the kids. And I'm like, I haven't done anything. So so that whole like correspondence and it's a little can be a little overwhelming at times and take a lot of my time. Jen gets after me all the time because I sometimes forget times that we're supposed to meet clients or something because I'm just all over the place a little bit. We've gotten better at it. I've actually delegated I'm going to be delegating some of that scheduling to Jen. So Jen and Susie can handle that, so that there's never a question on where we are, what time we need to be there. And arriving to a shoot 3 hours before we're supposed to be at the shoot and wondering where our clients are is, eats up in time. So, but we're really great, actually, for the most part, at keeping track of things. So, but yeah, so that'd be the main thing that I'm looking at right now. It's I'm pretty happy with our workflow. Again, by just sitting down and putting a schedule, like we know how many weddings we have on the calendar, so we know how long roughly each wedding takes. So we just look at the calendar and we just set a schedule, and then when it's heads down. When Jen's editing, I'm working. We don't even talk to each other really. It's she's doing her thing, I'm doing my thing, and we have like team meetings. It's literally like an assembly line essentially, and then we have lunch breaks and we'll sit and chat and bounce ideas off each other, and so it's been really great. But ultimately, it's just the general day-to-day business operations that can eat into a lot of your time. So if you're a single photographer and don't have an assistant, it can be a little overwhelming because you want to edit, but you have to be quick with your turnaround on client communication. So it's a struggle, and ultimately, the more you book, the more correspondence you're going to have to do, and the more editings you're going to have to work. So there has to be some way of making that a little more efficient, so that the photographers out there that don't have assistants, well, there are ways around it, which I think you guys are going to get to. But yeah. So, anyways, that's kind of what works for us, I guess.
Cool. I think you kind of just, we have some point questions here. I think you kind of answered the next one. It's just kind of saving time in front of the computer, and you guys just kind of touched on that and how you work in tandem with each other and schedule and that kind of stuff. So any great software-specific tools that you discovered lately? Things, you mentioned Tab A or Tave. Anything else in that line?
No, that's the main one. I mean, a fun one, I guess, that I've been enjoying a little bit is like Alien Skin Exposure 7, kind of cool. But that's more of an editing, it's just like a filter thing. It's just kind of neat. I generally, with our editing, like to do everything myself. Even our actions they're not like store-bought actions, or they might be like a hack of a store-bought action, but for the most part, we try to keep everything our own unique editing style. It's part of code photography. But the Exposure 7 is kind of fun to play around with. I know a lot of other photographers are huge advocates of it. It's really easy to batch a bunch of photos, and it's very much like Lightroom with some really cool filters. So, we love that. Google Snapseed for iPhones is like the best editing tool ever. It's so sweet, actually. I can't believe it's free. We use Visco and stuff for our little iPhone photos, but they're pretty cool. Really big into the whole wireless thing right now that one of our cameras have. I've got my little ones over there, but I love shooting with these little, either Wi-Fi cards or the 750s have wireless, or the XTIs or XT1s have them, and you just send them to your phone, and they're done, and you have these awesome photos, and it's really not that I don't like taking iPhone photos, but I'm a photographer, and I believe that we should be shooting every day to practice. And I don't care if it's just my kids running around the house, or I'm at Manic Photo Supply buying prints, and I take a portrait of whoever's behind the counter. It's just kind of I just try to shoot every day, and so these cameras have gotten smaller and more efficient, and I just rather shoot with that and upload those photos as opposed to iPhone photos now. But that's just my own preference.
Yeah, talking a bit about Wi-Fi, I've been hooked on this guy here, the little Instax Wi-Fi printer.
Jen, you should. Where is it? It's right behind you, isn't it? No, it's in the kitchen.
I'll do it.
So the funny that you pull that out. I have one, and I love them. So one of the little tricks I do is I'll go out and I'll take a picture of someone, like client meeting, take a picture of them, just let me take a portrait, and then Jen will chat with them a little bit. And then we hand out and we give them a little printout and say, oh, here you go. Throw a sticker on the back of my logo. And it's like, great meeting you. Here's a little portrait of you. I'll email it to you guys later. And it's just a great little personal touch that we like to give. And I got a little project that we're working at home. Like everybody that comes. So I have all my client meetings and everything are done in our house, in our living room, essentially. We invite clients over here and we flip it from family home to photography studio, essentially, during the day. And so I have a wall that my daughter and I have started, but we call them like pop-in portraits. So anybody that pops by, we're taking a picture, and then we just do a little printout on an Instax and stick it on the wall. So we have this growing wall of little Instax of just people that have popped by, and it's awesome, and I love it. So I'm hoping I'll probably like blog it or put it out there at some point, like all the pictures that we've taken. But it's just a fun little, thing.
Yeah, technology's getting so awesome now with cameras and printers and phones. I love the Instax printer, and I'm constantly printing off photos. Like the middle of a shoot, if we're walking somewhere, I'll fire off a few prints and give them to the couple right there.
Isn't it great? Like it's such a great, and they're blown away by it. Like it's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. You just took this, and I have a print now. And ultimately, I mean, you guys are just probably the same as me. Like in this day and age, when everything's digital, and I'd love to be a print-only studio. I mean, you can't, obviously, digital files, but we've actually been toying with the idea of going, like, saying, okay, if you want, and our collections have an album, all of them have an album, and if you want the digital collection, it's extra as opposed to vice versa. Just because, like, I mean, I read an article somewhere recently, and they said that how this is going to be the forgotten generation because everybody's going to have all these photos taken on computers, and then everything's going to be like old school and archived, and like you're not going to be able to connect to USB anymore. And I'm like, it kind of scared me a little bit. So we advocate printing and making albums with all of our clients, and even here at home, we try to practice what we preach. And so something as simple as a little wireless printer that you give them a print is like, here you have a physical something they can put in their wallet as opposed to a digital file, which I'll email you later, kind of thing.
Right. So, I call that hard drive hell.
Hard drive hell. There you go. That's exactly it, though. Yeah. So, but we do a good job at educating, and we are selling albums because our albums are so efficient and easy for us to do. We pretty much are selling albums to all of our clients, and so I'm happy that they all get prints. Every client gets a print or gets prints with their wedding collection. So it's not just digital for us anymore, and I'm just an advocate to our clients about that and why it's so important. And I think people are getting it over time. It's gonna, I think prints are gonna make a roaring comeback at some point. Maybe, I don't know. Somebody would argue it differently with me, but
yeah, it's everything analog eventually comes around. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah. It'll be
guys, sorry, guys. This Google Hangout's hard to kind of get a hold of who's talking here. I just actually noticed here, we had a question from a viewer, Adam Graham. He asked, he's interested in hearing about Jeff's thoughts on wedding photography, how it's changed from when you first started, till now.
So I think when I came on, it was before I started weddings. I found it was very traditional. It's what my parents' albums look like, what my wedding photos look like, and the creativity, and it just wasn't there. And I think a lot of that had to do with film days. You had a certain number of rolls and exposures to get, so it was very portrait-driven or pose-driven. I think with digital, it's changed because now you can just shoot, and worry about it later. Obviously, you need to think about your compositions and exposures. Sorry. but with the introduction of now of like lighting and there's tools and there's so much that you can do to be creative, that you're not bound to be a traditional photographer anymore. So it's been awesome. Like I find that now, like off-camera lighting, like so many people are using off-camera lighting now, and 5 or 6 years ago, very few were. But it's now the tools are out there to be more creative and have more fun on a wedding day. Just try to avoid doing what I did, is getting gear overload and buying everything that you think you need because it looks cool on a picture you saw online. Because that's not the proper way to run a business, and you'll spend a lot of money on stuff that you don't really need. So you think you need, but you just want it. And you got to separate the wants from the needs. So.
Photographers are I think some of the biggest guilty parties with buying new things. Just like I know myself, like any little gadget thing that I just want to pick up on, I got to stop that. It's just
Yeah, I was the worst when I first started. I thought I had to have everything. And now it's all kind of sitting in bags and boxes, and I use just such a smaller kit now. And I mean, I still have my gadgets like my Instax printer, but that's mainly for personal use.
I'm so glad you have that. You have no idea. Like, I tell everybody, I get excited. People come over, and I'm like a little kid that wants to show them their new toys. I'm like, look at this. It's awesome.
And when you show it to people, it blows their mind.
Yeah.
Like, not only that it's instant, but they're actually giving someone like a Polaroid or a, that's sort of lost.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, when you combine that with like the Fuji X100, like and print it, it's great. I mean, it's just amazing. So I love the.
It's funny because I was telling my dad the other day. I was like, look at this cool thing. We have this little mini printer. You can give clients prints right away. And he looks at me and goes, "Well, John, that's we had Polaroids when I was growing up. That's not a new thing. Combined with the technology nowadays, it is pretty cool. No one does it."
That's right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So to go back to Andrew's question, I mean, just the technology exists to do what you want, and if you have an idea, and then there's stuff out there to help you execute that idea that you didn't have years ago. Now with wedding photography, obviously it depends on your shooting style and what's important to you. I say that there's some photographers out there that are wedding photographers that are heavy portrait wedding photographers, and then there's photographers out there that are documentary or photojournalistic style, and then you have some that are a little bit of both. And ultimately, depending on your style, you have to figure out what tools work for you best, and then go from there. And so, if I was a portrait photographer, I'd probably, and we've done it, like Jen running around with a big softbox, like holding it, and I'm shooting and taking all these nice portraits, and they're well lit because I want clients to buy those photos, and that works, and it's great, and we do it from time to time, but it's kind of not as important to us anymore. But wedding photography is fun now. I think it's not what it used to be. I think it's a little bit of a tease factor. I mean, if you were a wedding photographer, people are like, "Oh, you're a wedding photographer. You're not a real photographer." But I think it's way different now. I think it's cool. It's fun. It's the new photojournalism. The new media industry has taken such a hit with like photojournalists getting laid off, and so weddings are, if you want to be a photographer and earn a living doing what you love, then I mean it's no better way really. So, and it's so much fun. Like you get to go to a party every weekend. It's just the work afterwards that kind of sucks a little bit sometimes.
I love the old adage in the talk of like you mentioned many years ago, wedding photography could have been one of the lower rungs of the ladder, but now as a wedding photographer, you're a landscape, you're a portrait photographer, you're a fashion photographer, you're a photojournalist. The wedding industry has changed so much, and so much of that is wrapped up into that one single day that the talent is through the roof. And I just want to mention to people, if you guys want to see Jeff's work, and I'm sure you've already seen it, but if you go online and go to jeffcookphotography.ca, you're going to see some of the most inspiring and incredibly beautiful wedding photos. Even just the main page here, it's just incredible. Just want to throw a little shout out there. It's very, very, very good. So please check that out when you guys get a chance. So
is there a new updated domain name, Cooked Photography?
Yeah, we have cookphotography.com, cookphotography.ca. Like, we have everything registered. Truthfully, I made the switch. I tell people cookphotography.com. It goes to my website, but then once you get into it, if anybody knows anything about like behind the scenes stuff that you guys do. WordPress and everything, everything was tied to jeffcookphotography.ca internally, and what I was worried about happening is if I made the switch and changed everything, it was going to blow up Google and SEO and all the incoming links that were coming. So I just decided just to leave it. I still have it, and like our new business cards and stuff will have cookphotography.com, but once you get inside, it's just going to, like, nobody really notices the URL anymore anyway. So internally, it's still going to be jeffcookphotography.ca, but yeah, we have, we registered the business now. Jeff Cook Photography Incorporated owns Cook Photography, so it's a legit switch.
We do have the knowledge to change that for you if you wish.
Seriously, I'm gonna call you guys because I had no idea what I was doing, and I'm pretty savvy with the technical behind the scenes, but that was beyond my scope, and ultimately I'm like, oh my gosh, all my Pinterest links and everything's gonna be broken, and
yeah,
so.
it's not trivial, so.
Yeah.
We can do that. I'm a web developer by trade, so that's my thing.
Cool.
So, okay, thanks. Well, I think we're pretty much done here. I think maybe we can close out, and why don't you tell people where they can find you, like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook? Yeah, we have, so Instagram is probably our most active. So mine is at Jeff Cook, JEFFCOOKE. Jen's is at Jen Noss, JENNNAUSS. And then we have a Cook Photography Instagram account. It's really funny. Why do we have 3 Instagram accounts? But really, I decided that I didn't want my Jeff Cook Instagram to be heavily wedding and posting wedding photos anymore. I was more interested in just my day-to-day things, behind the scenes, things I was doing, seeing, just interactions I was making every day, kids, family. So Cook Photography really came as a place to, much like Facebook, we have our Facebook accounts and then we have our business page. So decided that when we switched it up, we had Cooked Photography at Cook Photography Instagram. So that's what we'll be keeping up to date with, a lot of our shoots that we're doing and some of our favorite shots, and that'll be pretty regular in our updates and linking back to Jen and I and whatnot. So great.
What about your Twitter? Any Twitter handle?
Oh yes, Jeff Cook Photos on Twitter. Not really as active on Twitter. In fact, I'm pretty much just a glorified retweeter. But I'm on it. And Jen is Jen Noss on Twitter, and then Facebook. I mean, everybody can find me on Facebook. It's Cook Photography or Jeff Cook and Jen Noss. We're on Facebook, and so like our page, follow us on Instagram. Instagram being my favorite tool, my favorite social media.
Awesome.
Great. Okay, well, we'll take things offline here, but if you guys can stick around.
Yeah, for sure.
Up after we kill the broadcast. So.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's it.
All right.
Thank you everyone for watching. We'll do more of these in the future. So.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Right, thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.